Hello everyone, I hope you're well. I've popped upstairs and I thought I would create a journal page, and I love looking through the journal because it always inspires me, even just to look at it. If I'm struggling for colours, I can mix some of the colours I've used and add something else. It just gives me lots of ideas. I've now added this journal spread here to my website as requested by a few ladies. This was done on a retreat for one of my stockists, and now it's available on pre-record as a workshop on the website. But I just love looking back at the pages. Some pages I've sort of done a double spread, and some pages a single spread, but that means I can go back, and where I've used the pinks, plums colours here, I can use the same colours on the opposite page if I wish. So let's have a look. Let's find a different page. See, I've got another page there I can use. This was the page I did recently with this page opposite, which I will add some beautiful florals to that at some point. And now I'm going to go on to another page, and you can see here just the thickness of this in these pink pig journals is just fantastic. It's just what I want. So what I'm going to do now, I think I'm just going to I'm going to go with sort of a vintage theme, and I'm going to use my 3x5 gel press because I feel inspired to use that. So I'm going to use my Salvage Patina Distress Oxide ink. And I'm just going to press that just onto the gel press. Can you see I've got a nice hair there? We don't really want that. Let's just take that off. I don't think it's a hair. I think, no, that's a it's a fibre from my ink pad. I was trying to rip that off then. So that is Salvage Patina. I'm going to use Cracked Pistachio on the gel press, and then I'm going to use a touch of Vintage Photo, a little touch of the Vintage Photo, and then let's just move my book just while I add a little spray. I'm then going to use Salvage Salvage Patina Distress Oxide Spray. I wonder where I got that name, Patino, from. Nobody knows. So let's grab a little wipe so that I don't place my fingers in that over spraying. And then I'm going to actually, we'll just grab a little bit of kitchen roll. Just so that we can wipe the moisture up, so that I can pick things up a little bit easier. There we go. Then I'm going to take some water, and we'll just take the fan brush, and I'm just going to add some splatters of water. And again, I don't have to rush, which is wonderful. Just not having to rush too much when creating the project. So it's lovely. Do you know, I've been sitting downstairs and I was sitting with my little dog, and I thought I'll come up and do a video. Phones never rang. The minute I start the video, phone rings. Honestly. Every time. So I've got my gel press, and you can see I've got that, and I find this little press less daunting personally, so I find it easy to just play, and I don't find things too daunting at all because it's just a smaller area to work with, and it's sort of, I break a page down quite easily on my journal. So I'm going to place this just onto my journal page. And as always, when you've heard me say before, you can leave it like that if you wish, so that you've got these little dots and things, and leave it a few moments just so that it soaks into the page and stops moving too much, so that all the ink doesn't just come into the centre. Or you can press so that the inks sort of are pressed into the page a little bit more, just so that you can see. And I like that when it starts merging, which is what I want on this occasion. And you can see that I've got the beautifully merged background. So let's just give that some time just to absorb onto that surface, so that I don't lift it too soon. I allow it to do its job. Lifting it too soon, it's just all going to move to the centre. And I can see if it's still moving. I can see there it's still moving. It's moving less now here. So most of it, apart from the blue here, most of it has absorbed onto that page, which is just fantastic. And what I can do now is if I grab my heat tool, let's grab the heat tool, and we'll just give that a little bit of a dry. I do love these colours together. So I'm just drying this so that I can layer a little bit more colour onto the surface. And I can go back to my gel press, and if I want to add another colour, for instance cracked pistachio, I can take the cracked pistachio and just add a little bit more of that cracked pistachio. And again, I can take my water. Now you can add some copier paper at the bottom of your page so you can line your gel press up if you wish. I don't tend to bother, I just go by eye, to be honest, but that's just me. But I want to add a little bit more of this cracked pistachio. So I'm just adding a little bit more of that colour, and I can just press that just so that it all blends in. I can leave a few dots by not pressing too much as well. It's a lovely, easy way to create a background. And if you want, you can just dot it around your journal page so that you fill the whole page if you wish. But I just love how it's a lovely, simple way to break down your journal page. I know sometimes we have a fear of that blank page, don't we all? But it's just a lovely way, because it's just really, it's not too overpowering by having a huge gel press and having to do a huge area. I find this less daunting for me personally. So I'm going to lift that up now. And again, just wipe this moisture on here. So now I can actually see some of that cracked pistachio. Yeah, cracked pistachio. I can now see some of that colour. I can quite easily see the selvage patina because we use the spray as well, so it's a little bit darker. And I love these darker patches of blue. So it makes it really easy to pick out some colours if you want to in your focal imagery. And then if there's anything on your gel press, you can either use another piece of card or just go in and just add that to your page, just so that you pick everything up off your gel press. And now we've got a beautiful backdrop. It's our starting point, and it really helps us. It gives us somewhere to go. I can also sort of spritz this afterwards so that I get a little bit of a bleed. So what I was thinking was I can use Garden Elements TE30. So let's take TE30. I've still got all these backgrounds from previous projects I've done that I really need to do something with. But I've got all these backgrounds. There's bits here that never short of backgrounds that if I'm struggling with ideas, I'm never short of backgrounds. Let me just place them out the way. Place them up the corner, and then at least we've got a little bit more space. And what I love about this is if I peel that away, you've got the image on the acetate, and you can see quite nicely how this will go onto your page. It's lovely just to see that. I'm going to grab an acrylic block. And then I'm going to grab one of my brown inks, in this case Portobello. I'm just going to grab Portobello. I'm going to ink the whole of this image up just in my Portobello ink. And just give that plenty of tapping. Don't scrimp on the tapping with your ink. Just take your time and make sure there's good layers of ink on there. Just make sure your stamp isn't going to fall off your acrylic block, and you know why I say that, because you know that from experience I will have dropped it onto a page, and that's why I mention it. Now I'm working on a sturdy surface. If it was on the other side of my journal, I may need to put a book underneath, but I don't need to do that on this occasion. But what I do need to be aware of is that that oxide ink is there on the page, so we need to be mindful that we need to give our ink a little bit more time, and also mindful that we may need to dry our VersaFine Clair or blot, because we're now working on a surface that is not porous, or as porous as our white page, because we've got that layer of ink on there. Let's just lift this up. And look at that for an image. Isn't that beautiful? Just beautiful. So, you know I go off on tangents, so bear with me. Now, you know that I don't really use a stamp press. I don't use a stamp press, but some ladies... Can I just move this on one side, just so you can see what we've got? Now, some ladies have got their stamp presses. Now, I only use a stamp press if I'm doing techniques, so I don't tend to use it, even forget half the time how to use them because I use them so infrequently. But as you saw, I just stamped as normal with my acrylic blocks, and some ladies are having problems. So let's grab a piece of white card. Let's place the card down here. Lots of magnets here, look. Oh, she's not supposed to do that, Tracy. So this is my Crafts 2 stamp press. Can you see how many magnets I use? So you can see that I've already, I inked this stamp, but I'm not doing it for anything other than. So I'm going to just pick this stamp up. Now, a lot of ladies have said that they are having problems with their stamps sticking to the card. So I'm just going to ink my stamp. Plenty of ink. And then place my stamp onto the card. Now, what they're saying is when they come to lift this, it really sticks to the card. So let's just, mine doesn't, you see, but that could be because it's the Crafts 2 stamp press, or it could also be that I've got quite a few magnets on my card. Sometimes if you haven't got enough magnets to hold that down, but I've got quite a few magnets, and you saw that my stamp didn't stick. So there's quite a few magnets on there. It could be that. But if you are having an issue with your stamp sticking onto the card so that you have to hold the card down before you lift the lid, then maybe apply an anti-static bag so that it doesn't stick as much, or add another magnet. But I'm not having that problem with my particular stamp press that I use from Crafts 2. Just that's stamped perfectly, no problem whatsoever. But I do like to answer questions or test why things are happening. So I do apologise that I go off on a tangent very frequently. So I just like to make sure that I can test things for customers and see if it's, you know, anything to do with my stamps or anything like that. But it isn't really. Let me just, I place this in here. Have I got the, did this come in a box? Yes, this did come in a box. I'll show you which stamp press I'm using to prove that I'm not doing anything special. Let's just have this. This is my stamp press, Crafts 2, Press to Impress, includes 2 magnets, and I bought extra magnets. And I don't have any problem with it sticking to the card. So I thought it's important for me to test these things, and just so that you know, I'm always honest. If I've got the same problem, then I like to try and think of ways that we can get around that. So I love a bit of a challenge. So maybe try an anti-static bag or an extra magnet. It's particularly for Janet Hills, who asked me the question, and a couple of other ladies in my group. I do like to answer those questions. So let's continue with our journal page. Now, before we do that, I'm going to give my page a little bit of a spritz. Now, the reason I do this is I just love the soft edges. I don't like it too regimented all the time. The only thing you get with this is I absolutely soak my page, not my page, what's this underneath? My non-stick craft sheet. I absolutely soak it with water. But I do love the way I can just really easily just give that a more softer feel to the page. It just works really nicely. And then I'm going to give that a little bit of a dry. Now, what your stamp presses are wonderful for is, imagine I'd stamped the image in an oxide ink and then made it bleed. I can then over stamp and put the image back on again in exactly the same place with the stamping platform. So I'm just giving this a little bit of a dry. And I love that my pages can take this moisture. So you can see I'm dabbing a little bit because the extra moisture, I don't need to stand here when it's just water on the side. I can dab some of that up. Let's dry from underneath as well. Just dry some of that page. No seepage underneath your page. Just wonderful. And that's why I stock them, because the quality is second to none. And it takes the mediums that I use personally perfectly. Just love that. So we've got a beautiful backdrop here, and we're going to create sort of like a collage type image. So what I'm going to do then, and I'll leave that out because I might need that again. I'm then going to grab, I have to remember where everything is. Which background are you in now? You're not in that one, are you? Half the time I pull a background out and I frustrate myself. I'm sure I've tidied up. No, I haven't. I told you, didn't I, that I pull out backgrounds when I shouldn't, and it's right here on my left hand side. So now I'm going to use my Artsy Alphas stroke numbers TE16. And I love sort of creating my own collage. Where's the acetate? There it is. I love creating my own little collage. So I can add to this collage type stamp if I wish. So I'm going to take my Portobello again. And I'm going to add some of the text from TE16. Do you know, it messes with my head, the amount of things you have to remember. The numbers, the name, honestly. So now I can sort of extend the design a little bit. I can just add bits here and there. So we can, and I might have something coming that will extend the use of this, hopefully, if it works. So let's add the E there. So can you see I can add to the collage and it just works beautifully. So I can add little bits of this here. And nobody knows, apart from me and you, the fact that we've extended to this, it could have been part of the stamp quite easily. And that's what I love about stamps that allow you to sort of spread and add on to your collage. It just makes it so much fun. Let's just leave these here at the moment. Obviously, I am going to add a focal image to this as well. But what I want to do now is I want to grab a piece of white card again. Let's grab a piece of white card. And did you see when I stamped this onto the gel press, I've now got bits that I can actually use for collage pieces. So for instance, we can use this piece. And I love that when you've got stamps like this, you can sort of build on that. And I love the fact that my journal, I can keep looking back on that. So I've now got sort of a pop of the brown, but onto a white backdrop. That's lovely. So I do want to add, let's take the butterfly in case I want to add it somewhere else. Just have a look to see if you've got pieces that you would like to collage onto your background. So this just makes it pop a little bit by having it onto the white background. Gives it that element of brightness. Just because you're doing a vintage piece doesn't mean that it has to be sort of dull. You know, it can be however you want it. You know, grungy doesn't have to be dull and uninteresting. So I've now got the butterfly and I want a little bit of balance. So let's grab this. So you can see I'm just literally extending the collage. And that was, you know, only because I added this to my stamp press. So why not? Let's use those bits. Let's use you here. So I'm literally cutting around the top piece. So then I've got a collage piece here. I've got my butterfly that I may add here. We don't know yet. I'm just, first of all, making sure I use every bit I can just on here. So I've got these little alphabets here that I could use. I can just distress the edges. I'm not going for a perfect cut. I can just distress the edges. So I'm just cutting bits out that I feel I can tuck behind or whatever. I may save that yet. This is what I am like. So we'll just leave these little pieces at the moment, as you can see for my collage. And then I'm going to grab a floral. Let's just place that in there. Let's grab a floral. Where have you gone? That's it. So I would like this floral here from TE32 because it's nice and bold. So let's take that one. And just roll those back so that you don't overstretch them. Place it again. You can use your stamp platform, no problem. And then I'm going to do this in the portobello so that I can colour this. So I'm going to stamp in the portobello. No, sand dune. Oh, Tracy, it's because I've just used portobello. This is sand dune. If I could get my words out, it'd be a miracle. And I'm getting worse as I get older. You don't have to press too hard. You can just press with one finger. It's more about patience and just allowing that ink just to absorb onto the surface of your card. And just give it time. There we go. Beautiful image. Now I'm going to colour before I cut that out. I'm going to just give this a dry because I'm going to add colour to this. Now I fancy sort of a really dark, rich blue or so. There's already obviously one blue out here somewhere because it's missing on my desk. So let's have a look at some of these dark blues. I like to test. You see, that's more purple. Definitely don't want that. So let's go away from that range. That's better. Nice dark blue, which is denim blue. Bit of lightness with electric blue. Let's have a look. Yes, that'll give me my lightness. And maybe something really pale for my third colours. And then an indigo blue, just to give me very dark. And by now, you know what I'm going to say. I need to sharpen them. So, this lovely sharpener was purchased for me by Catherine, and I just love it. Love this sharpener. So let's, have I got it on the right side? Yeah. So let's just not drop the sharpener, especially onto a glass base. So I'm just going to give these a little bit of a sharpen. And the reason I'm using my non-dominant hand is I'm trying to make it so that the sharpener takes the pressure and not the pencil. That way I have less breakages. There we go. I will tell you the colours. go through those shortly. Nice sharp pencil there. And then the final one, which is not too bad, but we'll just make it a little bit sharper. It's like when you do your orange peel, you're trying to get your sharpenings as long as possible. Right, so we'll go through our colours. I've got lots of brown ink on here. So we have pale colour, Cloud Blue, PC 1023. And the next colour up is Electric Blue, PC 1040. These are my Prisma colours. And my dark colour, Denim Blue, PC 1101. Now I'm going to add also sort of touches of very dark, which is Indigo Blue, PC 901. So I'm going to go for the dark to light. You can go light to dark, whichever makes you happy. And I'm just going to add a little bit of this dark indigo, which was PC 901. And I do repeat myself, and the only reason I repeat myself is that I know what I'm like. If I'm colouring at the same time, I soon forget what number it is. I mean, that could be me. Seriously, could be me. But let's just colour. So I'm just adding the highlight now. The dark touch. I'm just adding a little bit of a dark touch to that. So this is going to be my really, really dark colour. Let's just... Don't press on too hard because you want to add layers. So you don't want to press too hard on those petals. We'll come down the stem. Just to add a little bit of that dark colour coming down the stem. And it's funny because even on the stems, it looks good just drawing a line like that. So then I'm going to go to my next colour, which is the Denim Blue, 1101. So these are Prisma colours, so the colours always start PC. So just come in with this beautiful, rich colour. Like so. Just coming into the previous colour. Now, because the colours are quite similar, what I sometimes do, just so that the petal doesn't disappear into the background, sometimes I'll just highlight just a little bit more, just so I can see that. I'm then going to come to my third colour, which is Electric Blue. I've got brews on the brain. PC 1040, Electric Blue. Or is it blue? Blue. So we'll then just blend into the previous colours with the Electric Blue. But again, I've got a sharp point on my pencil. I've got my fingers high up on the pencil. So therefore, I'm not pressing too hard. And the other reason I do that as well is because sometimes I decide to bring the darker colour further down. So I don't press too hard because I never know whether I'm quite happy. I'm not going to come in any harder on that at the moment. And then I'll just put a little bit of the pale colour, she says. She just breaks the edge of the pencil. Just a little bit of that pale colour, which in the camera you are not going to see much because I'm mainly going to be using this to blend the colours together. I'm then going to come to that very dark colour, the Indigo Blue. And I'm just going to come in a little bit further now. So now I know that I'm quite happy with that colour. I'm actually going to come a little bit further down. with that darker colour. Just a little bit further down. But again, apart from when I come to the edges, I am not really pressing on very hard at all. So I'm just coming down a little bit further with that very dark colour. And then I'm coming to the next colour, which is very similar, denim blue. But the denim blue, when you blend it into the other colour, it's almost velvet looking when you come in with that denim into the other colours. So coming in with the denim into the darkest colour. And you can see I've extended those darker colours now, because sometimes I have to play and just decide what I would like. Then I'll come to the electric blue and just blend the electric blue into those darker colours. Just blend into those darker colours. And again, I'm not pressing too hard. Some colours give you a little bit more bloom than others, a few little bits but I'm not pressing too hard. So just coming into the previous colours. There we go. But you've got a rich, dark blue there. I'm then going to sort of blend all the colours with this pale colour. I don't know why I've missed the top petal, don't ask me. This is just the very palest colour, the cloud blue, 1023. Couldn't see it then in the light. Just come in and just blend. And then we can repeat another time now. So I'm going to come down with this indigo. And then I'm going to come in for the last time now. Just coming in and smoothing everything out for that last time. And it actually smooths out before your eyes. Just come in. I do lose myself when I'm colouring. There we go. And I'm just going to sort of add a few little blue scribbles, like little scribbly circles, just to the top, just to give a little bit of darkness and depth to that floral, especially when I add the white. It'll be a nice contrast, but it'll give it a little bit more depth by adding the dark colour in there. And then going to come to the second colour. That is not the second colour. The second colour, the denim, and come in with your final layer and just blend with your final layers. And you can still see it blending if you haven't pressed too hard. So as long as you haven't pressed too hard, it still allows you to add pigment and overlay that pigment, as long as you've not pressed too hard too soon. Let's add a little bit of the paler colour. I'm still keeping some of the sand dune sort of visible on the stem. And then let's add a little bit of this paler colour just to the centre. And then we'll blend all of it with our palest colour. And going into all the colours with this pale colour. I'm then going to take my Posca pen, and just at the top I'm going to add some little dots of white. And because I've added those sort of darker blue areas, this layers onto the top of that, but still leaves some of that visible, just so that you've got a little bit more depth. You can go around the edge here just a little bit with the dark, just so that we get a little bit of a contrast with that white. And keep adding dots and add it in layers. So once you've added one layer, let it dry and then add another. You can then also, as long as you've let this rest, you can then add touches of white. You don't have to press very hard, just to add a little element of white. As long as you've given it a little bit of rest time, it just gives it some time before you add that white. And remember to wipe your gel pen, because it will pick up those waxy layers and just stick to the, not the gel pen, the Posca paint pen. I'm leaving a little white border just so I get a little bit of a contrast. And then again, a little touch of white just around the petals. And I'm turning the card rather than turning my scissors. That means that way I don't sort of almost break my wrist trying to get it at funny angles. And that lovely rich blue is just gorgeous. And a lovely sort of contrast with the slight sand dune touches slightly visible. Works quite nicely, especially with our background. button on there. Really is a lovely, oh, nearly tugged the floral off then. It really is a lovely, lovely blue. And I'll lift this up so that you can get a better view, a little bit closer to the camera. There we go. Let's straighten our stem, and just so that you can see, we've got a lovely, lovely blue on there. And then I will come in again. Let's make that a little bit straighter. I will come in again, and I'm just going to add more dots of that white. And it actually does give it a little bit more depth. And what you'll see is, if you look very closely, you can see, come on camera, slight touches of the sand dune, which really add to that as well. Now, I don't like to add, I don't sort of like to adhere everything until I'm happy with what I've got. So this is going to go on here. And then let's have a look. Where's my little touches of, oh, bring these in. So I do like to sort of, I honestly, I'm a faffy. Now, if like me, you're playing around with a composition, then really what you need to do is maybe take a photograph so you don't forget where your composition is and what you are aiming for. So you really need to think about that. Yes, because I'll add the chevron. This is where I talk to myself. So I'm going to grab my adhesive now, because I do like where the pops of white are. So these are easy to remember where they're going, because you're just overlaying them onto the other pieces. So that's quite easy to remember. Don't place it down. I remember where that's going. Don't place it down and press it down till you have got that lined up, or almost, unlike me. This is why I end up faffing. It's got to be right, or else there's no point. There we go. Don't ask me why I'm faffing so much. Then we'll place this piece. And you can see I'm not using much adhesive, just to add this here. And then I can add my floral. Oh no, I don't need that. I sort of know where that's going. Oh, she says as she flicks it up. So I'm going to take my floral. I'm going to take this here, like so. And obviously I don't want to add too much. Did I add any down the stem? No, I didn't. I don't want to add too much dimension that my page doesn't close. So you just need to be mindful that this is your journal page, so maybe a little less dimension, but you can leave a couple of your leaves just sort of loose like this, and that automatically adds some dimension really easily. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this butterfly, so I'm going to tuck, I keep changing my mind, you have to bear with me, that's just what I'm like. I'm going to add some of this sort of denim-y blue colour, but very lightly to the dragonfly. So you can see I'm just sort of giving it a little bit of colour, but I'm using a flicking motion so that I don't add too much colour. So I'm just going to add some of the colour that we've put on that floral, but I don't really want it to be too much. Just a little bit of the colour. And hence I'm just using a bit of a flicking motion so that I don't add too much. Just a little bit darker there. So just a little bit of colour, but keeping it so that some of that white area is visible. There we go. I'll just use the very pale colour just to blend those out. Just slightly, but it just gives a touch of that colour, which I'm going to add. Come on, speak. Or I might add it as a balance, that's better. So the balance, I've got the balance then of the blue, so that just looks a little bit better. So I definitely like that there. So I'm just going to adhere this just across that centre there. Just so the wings are still slightly loose, because it just gives a little bit of dimension to the page. But that just gives me balance with the touches of the blues. Let's place this back. So we'll take there. Again, roll your stamp off the acrylic block. And then I'm going to take the little tag from TE32. And we'll stamp that in our Portobello. Let's remember the right colours. Portobello. Don't even know where I've put the sand dune. Portobello. What did I play? Oh, I placed it back in the drawer. Just add my little tag. And then I'm going to just add. Who am I going to add? Come on, which way? That way. So let's take this. I'll just take a piece of copier paper, plus put this down the side. You can see now I'm enjoying myself and I'm just playing, but I've not got enough room on my desk. You can see that. So I'm just going to take my black ink. I'm going to end up moving the copier paper anyway, but I'm going to take my Nocturne ink. And because I'm not concentrating, I've pressed the edge onto the acrylic block. I'm just going to place that on the edge there. I really should create a mask. And I have got one somewhere, but I'm enjoying myself too much. So let's have that there. There we go. So I've got my little pheasant in there. Let me just stamp that a minute. Hang on a minute. So this is me checking now. Yeah, what's that curly bit there? Oh, that's the little hole in the... Do you know, I thought I was seeing things. Right, so let's cut this out first. And because I've been crafting now, I'm warm, so we'll take my long sleeve top off because I'm boiling. I I've got a little fan here as well. Seems like ages since I've said that. I've got my fan here. There we go. And I'm then going to add the colours. So I'm going to go this way. So let's add a little bit of, now my finger's in the way, because what you should do really is colour then cut. Don't make it difficult for yourself like I'm doing. Go to my second colour. Third colour. And I'm not pressing on too hard, there's no need. Come into your other previous colours. And then just a little bit more scribbled, and that is not blended at all, so we come in again a little bit darker, and the second colour, and you can see I've made it difficult for myself by cutting it out first, but that's me all over. Then go into the colours with our third colour. And then just blend it all out so the edges are softened just with this pale cloudy blue, so that softens that a little bit. We'll then take our micron pen and just so that you can see a little bit of white. Now let me just, so you are, yep, so I'm going to stick this down, my little tag. Just on there. And then we'll just extend the little twirly as if it's attached just a little bit more. So now I do like this. The thing with me with collages, I love, absolutely love faffing. It's a little bit there, yeah. And I do talk to myself as well because I'm good like that. Always talk to myself. I'm terrible. Let's have, I hadn't better put that in case I decide to add a word. So let's grab our, you can tell when I just completely lose myself. So I'm going to add a little bit of shading now, but you can see what I mean with this leaf being free. It just automatically gives that a little bit of dimension automatically. I'm just going to add a little bit of shading to the floral and hope that I've left my brush in its place. And by now you know that I love doing these bits. Just adding a little bit of shading to certain areas, just so that it pops a little bit more. And then the only thing with me is I put this little brush down, this little pencil, it's not a brush, Tracy, this pencil down, and then I forget where it is. But what I love is when I touch this page with a little bit of water, it really reacts. It's just wonderful. So we're going to add a little bit here, a little bit of shading underneath there. I love when you do sort of a collage page because you can play so long. Just let's add a little bit more shading here. And then what I like to do is just go, before I add my splatters, I do like to go in again and just emphasise some of the white areas again. Just sort of emphasising them a little bit more, a bit scribbly, sort of not too perfect, a bit like my sketching and drawings. Just add some touches of white just on your pieces because it really sort of, it lifts the whole page. I'm then going to take my bigger Posca pen, which is the PC5M, and I'm going to add, now you can see there's nothing happening there. So if I give my pen a little bit of a shake, and then I exercise my bingo wings at the same time, then press the Posca pen down and just press it down gently. You don't need to damage the nib. Now this should have then make it easier to splatter your pen because you're not fighting with it. You've got that paint flowing, so it works quite nicely and you're not making your arms ache. But don't damage your pen by pressing it too hard. So let's have a look at wording now, just to finish this off. So we'll just place this stamp back because let's put the pheasant back because I've literally got stamps everywhere and I know that's nothing new. Do you know, I think today has gone ever so quick. Not on that one, so let's put TE30 back. I don't know what I did with the big stamp. Oh, I just plonked it over here. There we go. Place that acetate back again. And then we'll just grab maybe a word or something. Where's the... There we go. So I can just use the flowers word on here, on my flower power. And I'm going to stamp that in the black. And if I sort of stamp against a straight edge, that helps me visually just to stamp the word straight. And listen to the word hopefully, because I don't always stamp straight. Then cut this out. And again, this word stamped onto white card is then going to coordinate with the white touches that I've just added there. Like so. I'm just going to add the word flowers just here. I do need to fill this up, and I keep saying I need to fill it up and then I don't fill it up. That word flowers there, and just give that a few moments to just grab hold of the page. Just take off any extra glue, you know, when you get a little bit of dry glue on there, and then I can just place, she says, this back in. There we go. I use the edge of my finger as a guide. Then just, we'll add a little bit of shading just under here, a little bit there. And then we'll just take a little bit of water. And you can always dilute that out. There you go. And then just see if you, like here, I mean, I don't want to put it back now. You can decide whether you want to add, how many times am I going to do this? Sometimes you can add sort of some depth and sense of depth by adding sort of one of your little creatures or whatever. And it just gives that perspective that it's looking at something, so therefore it's further away. So if I add the little pheasant here, it will give you a sense of distance. You don't have to add that. It's your journal page. You, by all means, change it, swap it up. But don't do as I do and keep putting your little pencil down and then you're not able to find it, even though I keep putting it in the same place. This should be wet enough to... Oh, there's a bit of wet there. There we go. Let's dry that. I'll just add a little bit more white along there. And it just gives that sense of distance, if you want to give that sense of distance. Let's fold that page up just so that you can see. I'm really pleased with that. Just love that page, and just because I wanted a little play in my journal. So I hope you've enjoyed the process and the step-by-steps. I look forward to seeing your interpretation. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.